Welcome to the Haven Podcast, a show where we take a deeper look into the realms of dating, marriage, relationships, and intimacy with thought-provoking guests who bring fresh, real, and unique perspectives and experiences to the conversation. We're here to bring you insights, practical advice, and deeper understanding you've been looking for. Now, here's your host, Brianna.
So Leigh, thank you for joining us on today. I'm excited to have you because we are talking about a subject that I'm very interested in because here it is, I hate to say middle age, I guess.
Join the club, join the club.
Yeah. And so I have some hormonal things going on, and I have started to experience acne myself and going to the dermatologist and just all kinds of things. And then noticing how my my eating is affecting my stomach and how I'm digesting food. And a lot of my peers are experiencing the same thing. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say on the subject. I'm excited to hear what you have learned through your own journey. And we're going to get into talking about your book later. But yeah, so if you can just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's just jump right on into the conversation.
Sure. So I'm based in the UK, as you may be able to tell from my accent. Not that I think I have an accent, by the way. So I've been in health and wellness since 1996. So I've been doing this quite a long time. But my journey, if you like, in this area started when I was 13. So like a lot of teenagers at that age, I started to get blackheads, I started to get whiteheads, and my mother took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, "No problem. Here's a cream. Here's a cleanser. Your problems are solved." So I thought, great, So I went away and I started using the cream, and the active ingredient is called benzoyl peroxide, and I'll probably come back to that later. And the cleanser contains an ingredient called salicylic acid, and again I might come back to that later. And I started using those religiously, first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Nothing really happened apart from my skin got drier, it got redder, it got flaky, it was stinging all the time, and the acne didn't get any better at all. In fact, it got worse. So after some time I went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Look, okay, we need to ramp things up here. I'm going to prescribe you some antibiotics." Now, as a 13-year-old, I didn't really know what antibiotics were, or didn't know anything about them. So I started taking an antibiotic called erythromycin, and very quickly my skin cleared up. And I thought, wait, that's it. This is solved now. I can get on with the rest of my life. And sadly, that only lasted about 6 weeks. And the acne came back, and it came back a lot worse. So as you can imagine, being a teenager, and I know a lot of teenagers suffer with acne, right? 85% actually of adolescents suffer from acne. That's a huge number. So the thing was that, yes, teenagers get acne, but my acne was really bad. I would have nodules and cysts on my face like the size of a golf ball. I had blackheads, whiteheads, cysts, nodules, not just on my face, but my chest and my upper back. It was bad. My nickname at school was Zit. That's how bad it was, right? So when you think there were probably others in my class, although to be honest, there wasn't that many people in my class that had acne. There was 2 or 3 of us probably. And yeah, when the jokes are flying around at school, you're always whatever makes you different is what you get. That becomes your nickname, right? So that was bad enough. But then, as a teenager, you think, well, it's not going to last long. Even at 13, your teenage years is only another 6 years, and then they're gone, right? So you're kind of thinking, well, I'll get to 19, 20, my acne will go away. Well, that didn't happen to me. And in fact, the older I get, the worse my acne got. And occasionally I'd go back to the doctor and say, "Look, this isn't working. What can I do?" And the only solution he ever gave me was, "Well, you're obviously now not responding to that antibiotic, so here's another one," right? So in an 18-year period, all my doctor ever gave me was the cream, the cleanser, and different antibiotics. I probably went through about 6 different types of antibiotics, and I didn't come off them for 18 years, which you know, it's a pretty dangerous thing to do. It's not a very healthy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my health journey. But what was happening at the same time, as you can imagine, it's really detrimental to your mental health. It really destroys your self-esteem. It really destroys your self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily, it didn't really affect my school. I did well at you know, my exams. I was very sporty. I was very good at sport.
Mm-hmm.
So I did okay in that respect. Then I left school, but now you're getting into going for job interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in relationships. And let me tell you, acne is not the best thing in the world to building your confidence when you're going for a job interview or if you're dating, right? So during my 20s, I don't know how many job promotions I missed out on because of my skin. Now, you can never know for sure whether it's that, but you feel quite often, you know, you might be 25, 26, 27, you've got a face full of acne, and you see people looking at you and they're thinking, well, this guy's a teenager. He clearly can't have the experience that he's selling, you know, even at a subconscious level, people are judging you because of your acne, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there were a number of jobs that I knew I could have done far better than the person that got the job. And maybe it was nothing to do with my acne, but that's certainly how I look back and think was the case. So just from a financial point of view, potentially that could have cost me a lot of money because I wasn't getting these job promotions. But the other thing was that, you know, I'd be in relationships, and then when my skin got really bad, they would come to an end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't blame any of my ex-girlfriends for that, right? I don't blame them, because I wouldn't be attracted to someone that had really bad acne. You know, some people might want to judge me for saying that, but that's the truth, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at it from a, you know, an evolutionary point of view, that makes sense, because you don't want to be attracted to a partner that's got a health problem, because you want to raise healthy, strong children, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of makes sense. So that was my journey over 18 years. And then, so I started, how old would I have been? 27. I started working as a personal trainer. So I'd switched from, I was working in IT, I switched to become a personal trainer. And in the year 2000, so I would have been 31, I went to a lecture at Loughborough University in England, and there was an American guy doing a lecture called Flatten Your Abs Forever. Okay. So, you know, I think we all went in there thinking, yeah, we're going to be doing some sort of crunches and, you know, ab exercises, but it was in a lecture hall, and you think, well, how are we going to be doing exercises? It's just desks and seats. Now, this lecture hall was packed, standing room only, right? And this guy's, you know, he's 5'8", he's got a bald head, he's full of muscles, and he starts talking about how food affects your hormones, and how your hormones affect your skin, and how food intolerances can affect your skin and things. And I'm thinking, wow, like I've been seeing a doctor for 18 years. He's never mentioned anything like this. Yeah. Now, this American guy wasn't a medical doctor, right? So anyway, I went away and I saw a guy locally, and I thought, well, let him run some tests on me and see what comes up. Mm-hmm. And this guy ran some tests, and he said, look, the first thing I'm going to tell you, stop taking those antibiotics, because they're not doing you any good, and they're clearly not working. And he said, the next thing is you've got a fungal infection. Mm-hmm. And he said, the chances are that the toxins that are coming from that fungal infection are contributing to your acne. Mm-hmm. He then said, here's a list of foods you're sensitive to, which means your body is attacking those foods. That creates collateral damage. That creates toxins in the body, which again is probably contributing to your acne. So he sent me away, and he said, right, these are a list of foods that you can't eat anymore. These are a list of foods that fungus love to eat, so you can't have those either. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time I saw that guy. So I went home and I ripped out everything from my kitchen cupboards, because almost everything in the kitchen cupboards was on that list. Mm-hmm. I went to the supermarket, I restocked, and 2 weeks later, my skin was clear. Wow. After 18 years. Now, the years following that, I wouldn't say I was completely acne free, but I went from having 100 breakouts a year, because I was breaking out almost every other day, to maybe 4 a year. Right, that was the difference. Mm-hmm. And then about 10 years after that, it got to the point where I am now, where I would say 99.99999% acne free.
Oh, wow.
So there was further things I needed to do, which again, it's a very, very long story. But in terms of my own story, if I can just kind of summarize it, what was happening right from the beginning is my doctor was trying to treat the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
But if you try to treat the symptom, you're not getting to the root cause. So I went through all that painful time where if I'd have met this American guy 18 years earlier, he may not have had that knowledge back then. I could have prevented all of that heartache, all of that disappointment by predominantly changing my diet. There was other things as well that I did that we can potentially come onto, but by changing my diet, it massively changed the health of my skin. And this is what I've seen. So from about 2008, I decided I wanted to help other people going through the same predicament as me. So how long is that? Last 16 years, I've been helping other people, and I find they get the same kind of result, not necessarily as quick. Now, sometimes that it is that quick, but it's mainly with men, and there's a difference why it's a bit more difficult for women than men, and I think you've already alluded to that. But for men, I find anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, and it's clear. And I would say with women, probably from 3 months to 9 months, it generally takes to clear the skin. That's on average over the people that I've helped over the last 16 years or so. So that's kind of my story with acne itself. Now, I mentioned that I started as a personal trainer, but I've studied many, many, many things since then. And some of the key things that I've studied to help with acne, one is functional medicine. And I've also studied, I did this during lockdown actually, I studied holistic dermatology, which again looks at how to treat the skin as part of a whole system rather than just the skin itself. Because my belief is, and the way that I look at skin, is that it's what I call an inside job, right? People often, they think, oh, what's the magic product for me to use, right? Or if I rub this on my skin, it's going to solve it. Or if I take this pharmaceutical, it's going to solve my skin. But what I've learned is that if you heal the body from the inside, the skin sorts itself out.
So I want to interrupt you. So this is so interesting because I when my face began to first break out, I was giving creams as well that did not help. They would help for a little while, then the breakouts would start coming again. And then my daughter deals with the same issue, and she uses creams and things on her face. And it was something when you made the statement how it's not healthy to do that for that prolonged amount of time. I want us to talk about that. And then I also want to talk about, because when you went into this lecture hall and they said, flatten your stomach forever, right? I want you to touch base on, once you discovered the foods that you ate, what's the correlation with the flattened stomach?
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, that lecture was 24 years ago, so I don't remember that. I mean, funnily enough, I've given that lecture myself because I am now a part of this guy's institute, so I teach for him. But just in terms of the products and the potential harms that they have, so I have to be careful what I say there. But in my book that I've written about acne, there's a whole section on each of the common pharmaceuticals that are used for, and topical products that are used for acne. And I've quoted the UK's National Health Service for the potential side effects. So I've gone to an official source. I'm not making these up, right? But the most common topical product used normally contains an ingredient called benzoyl peroxide. So benzoyl peroxide is like it kills the bacteria. That's the plan anyway, right? It's meant to sterilize the skin in a way. Well, quite interestingly, I saw a report that came out last week, and benzoyl peroxide can break down, particularly when it's under heat. So again, if you think these things travel, you know, they could be exposed to heat at any time. The benzoyl peroxide breaks down, and one of the ingredients it breaks down to is called benzene. Now, benzene is a known carcinogen and has been linked to child leukemia as well. So, you know, you do have to be very, very careful. Now, I'm not here to tell people what decisions they should make or what treatment they should do, right? My role is to educate people and for people to be able to see all the facts and then make their own decision. If people want to use that product, go for it. But I would say make sure you do your research first and make sure you know what the alternatives are. So that's just one example. Again, there's the salicylic acid. Again, it causes, you know, as it did for me, real severe dryness, flakiness, stinging. Now, the ironic thing was when I used this cleanser, it strips all your skin of its natural oils, right? Well, oils, I'm sure we're going to come on to talk about, is one of the causes of acne, right? When your skin produces excess oil. Now, what I found was when I used this cleanser, it dried my skin so much, my body responded by creating even more oil. So my skin, even though it would be flaky and dry, but then it would be dripping with oil. You know, it would go from dry to oily, dry to oily, dry to oily. Now, if you're producing too much oil, that's one of the known causes of acne. Now, obviously, antibiotics that I took, now, obviously, the problem there is that you can become resistant to antibiotics. So if you're ever in a life-threatening situation, or, you know, you might be going in for a routine surgery even, you might need antibiotics. But if you're now resistant to most antibiotics, like I probably am, right, that could cost you your life.
Oh, yeah. I sat with someone in the hospital who was septic, and they almost died because they tried several different antibiotics. But I did notice that this same individual, they had an issue that the doctor kept giving them antibiotics. And they might be on antibiotics for half the year for this one problem.
And they are very necessary in certain circumstances, and that's why it's really important that people don't become resistant to them. You know, we see, certainly here in the UK, I'm guessing it's the same in the US, there are antibiotic resistant bugs that are very prevalent in hospitals and people often die from them. Right? MRSA is a, you know, probably the most well-known one. The other issue with antibiotics, and this is where we start to talk about the gut a little bit, is that they don't kill just the bugs that you want to kill. They kill all of the bugs. So in our body, we have good and bad microbes. Now, what tends to happen is when we kill let's, in inverted commas, the good bacteria, well, the good bacteria are there to protect us. Now, if we've taken our protectors away, now the nasty microbes can proliferate in your gut and elsewhere. And these, for want of a better phrase, pathogenic microbes, they release toxins, right? So, and again, toxins are also another one of the reasons why we get acne. So it becomes a really big vicious circle. So you've got the products that they don't treat the root cause, they're only treating the symptom, and they generally are not that great at treating the symptoms anyway. The one product that I see is quite effective, not always, but probably the most effective product is called isotretinoin. It used to be called Accutane. But that also comes with serious side effects. So
I took that, and I was probably 5 shades darker, and my family thought something was wrong with me. And I'm walking around here 5 shades darker, and my lip, because it keeps your mouth dry. And so here it is, I'm walking around 5 shades darker, and my lips are pink. And so my family's thinking, what is wrong with you? And it was all because I was trying to get rid of acne.
You know, what it does, it actually shrinks your sebaceous glands in your skin. So your sebaceous glands secrete the oil, which is called sebum. So the isotretinoin or Accutane, as it used to be called, they've changed the name because it actually got such a bad reputation. It shrinks the sebaceous glands. So now you end up with dry skin. and it's actually irreversible. So if you get to the point where your sebaceous glands have reduced in size and they're unable to produce enough oil for your skin, because it's there to lubricate and protect your skin, then you end up with dry skin for the rest of your life, and there's no way to reverse that. Now that's not one of the worst side effects. So again, I'm quoting the UK's National Health Service website. The most negative side effect is suicide.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's lots of warnings. If you read the package insert, there's lots of warnings about if you feel suicidal, contact your doctor immediately, things like that. So, if I was a parent, I wouldn't want, my teenage child using that, even though it would be the best, most effective treatment. But then what are the consequences? So again, I'm not telling people what they should or shouldn't do. People need to make their own decision, but you need to be aware of what decision you're actually making.
Yeah, because it's better to make a decision based off of information, an informed decision, just versus what the doctors tell you. Because I know I was never told about that side effect. I was told about all the other side effects, but that was the one that I was never told about. And that same medicine was recommended for my daughter. And luckily, thank the Lord that she only took it for a month. Because you have to take it, you have to, there's all these steps to it, and so she just couldn't. She was like, "Ma, it's too much. I don't want to do it." So I'm glad that she did decide, because she was young. Well, she's young now, but she was in school, and I couldn't have lived with myself, or not knowing that.
Yeah, for sure. So do you want me to talk about how to flatten ribs forever and how that relates to the? So in terms of the lecture. So the lecture is really saying, if you want to be healthy, if you want to be lean, you need to eat a healthy diet, right? Now, this is my saying, and I completely believe this, and some people can disagree with me if they want, but health and disease cannot live in the same body.
Right.
Right. So when you optimize your health, you don't have any symptoms. And being overweight or carrying too much body fat is a symptom. Okay, so what the lecture really discusses is things like food quality. So making sure that you're eating foods that weren't grown in chemical pesticides and fertilizers, right? Eating whole foods, so not packaged foods, nothing that's been heavily processed. I suggest to people that eat foods where there's just one ingredient, right? If you eat an apple, there's one ingredient, it's apple.
Right.
If you eat chicken, there's one ingredient, it's chicken. Now, I remember being in San Diego a few years ago, and I was in Whole Foods, and I was buying some food for the week, and I picked up some ground beef, and I don't know why, for some reason, I flipped it to look at the back. Now, I would just imagine if it was beef, it would just be beef. So I flipped it over. It says beef and cane sugar. I was like, why is there sugar in beef? Right? So I put that back, and I found another one that didn't have sugar in it, right? So what I recommend for people to do is, as much as possible, now I know it can be difficult, people got busy lives and preparing food can be a challenge, but I talk about how you can prepare food in my book and in my coaching program for people with acne. But try as much as possible to eat or to buy foods that have got one ingredient. Try to cook as much food yourself as possible, because then you know what's in it. And if you're eating out, ask questions. If you're eating in a restaurant and you're just about to order something, ask the waiter about it. Is it being cooked in any vegetable oils or seed oils, which we know cause inflammation in the body, which can cause acne, as an example. But a lot of the same things that cause acne can cause obesity.
Yes.
Right. And this is another message that's really important that I try to get across to people, because I think people have been trapped in a paradigm when it comes to health. But what I say to people is, if you have acne, it's a blessing. Now, that might sound crazy to hear if you've got acne now. And I would have said the same thing when I had acne. If someone had said to me, "Oh, your acne, it's a blessing," I'd have said, "You're crazy. Like, how on earth can that be a blessing?" But the reason it's a blessing, it's the canary in the coal mine. It's a warning sign, right? It's like your engine warning light has come on in your dashboard telling you there's an issue with your engine.
Mhm.
And what you should do is take it to a mechanic and let him check the engine. But if we treat the symptom, that's like taking a piece of black tape and covering the engine warning light on your car and ignoring the engine.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So when you get acne, what it's telling you is there's something wrong on the inside. There's something that's out of balance that you need to balance. So
Mhm.
it's making you aware of that. And it's interesting. Someone asked me on a podcast last week, why is it that acne is generally on the face and not anywhere else? And I said, I think there's two reasons. And I said, the first reason is if you look at the skin microbiome, so the bacteria, the archaea, the fungi, etc., that's on the skin,
Mhm.
the bacteria that's linked to acne, which is called Cutibacterium acnes,
Mhm.
is predominant on the face
Mhm.
and the chest and the upper back.
Yes, because that's when my daughter
Right?
would get hers. But I'm gonna ask you, about why does it come out? Because if her face might clear up, but then it will pop up in
Mm,
other areas of her body. So
mm,
it's like was no winning this battle. Let me ask you this question.
mm,
So when we talk about the hormonal portion of what we eat, it has
mm.
when you were going through with your acne, do you ever recall, or could you really separate the two? Because I know it comes with this low self-esteem and that part. But do you believe that, or did you see a difference after you started eating correctly in your mood?
Uh, I would say no.
Okay.
Now, the reason I say no, and obviously, again, there are differences between males and females. Males don't have a menstrual cycle, so obviously the fluctuation of estrogen and progesterone affects his mood, right? We don't have that. We're simple beings, us men, and I'm generally someone that's very mentally emotionally stable. I'm just one of those chilled out people, right? So what I did notice, this is what I did notice, and it's slightly mood related. I no longer suffered from these massive hunger pangs. I wasn't hungry all the time. I stopped craving food all the time
Mhm.
because, and this is another thing that's really important with acne, but it's important with everything, but particularly with acne, is that you need to balance your blood sugar levels. What you want ideally throughout the day, yes, your blood sugar levels are going to go up and down when you eat and when you exercise, but you want it as balanced as possible because when your blood sugar goes higher quickly, so let's say you had a very sugary meal, right? Or let's say you drank a large glass of cola.
Mhm.
What happens is the sugar from the food or the drink gets released into the bloodstream very quickly. Now, your body responds by releasing the hormone insulin. So,
Mhm.
the job of insulin is to get the sugar out of the blood because it's toxic. Sugar is toxic in the blood.
Mhm.
So, what it does, it stores it initially in muscle tissue and the liver. Once they're full, then it starts to add it to the fat cells, right? So, blood sugar levels go up, insulin responds. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Insulin stimulates the sebaceous glands to secrete oil or sebum in the skin. And this is really the first mechanism of how acne actually happens. So if you've got an excess amount of insulin, there's another hormone linked to that called insulin-like growth factor 1. They both stimulate the sebaceous gland to secrete sebum or oil. The oil builds up, it blocks the pore. Now you've got a whitehead, blackhead, etc. Right? So that's one direct link between food and hormones and acne. But then there are other foods as well that do similar thing. Dairy is another one that will stimulate those same hormones.
Mhm.
So the whole point of dairy is to feed baby mammals. So when you're a baby mammal, you want something that's going to help you grow very quickly,
Mhm.
right? That's what dairy is for. Dairy is to stimulate growth. But dairy stimulates the sebaceous glands. It can also stimulate the production of skin cells as well.
Really?
So if you've got excess skin cells and excess sebum, that all gets sticky and it gets trapped in the hair follicle. Now, this is where it gets also even more interesting. So on our skin, we have bacteria, we have fungi, we have archaea, all these little microbes. But all the microbes, now, unlike the microbes in our gut, the microbes in our gut feed off of our food. They've got plentiful food supply, right? These are micro little beings, if you like. But on the skin, there's no food. So what do they eat? Well, guess what? They eat the oils from the sebum and they eat the proteins from the skin cells. So now when you've got an abundance of the oil and you've got an abundance of these skin cells, these bacteria can feast. Now it's party time for them. So now the Cutibacterium acnes bacteria is a beneficial bacteria on the skin. However, if there's too many of them, now it becomes a problem. And your immune system says, we need to calm this down. So now the immune system starts to attack these bacteria. Now you get inflammation. And what do you get with inflammation? You get redness, you get swelling, you get pain, right? So, and again, we've just really touched the surface here, but can you see how what you eat affects the hormones and the hormones affects the skin?
Yes. And so, yeah, when you were talking about the milk thing, I was thinking, because my household, we've switched to almond milk.
Okay.
And I like oat milk for my shakes that I make. And so, I mean, do you think, are those a healthier option, or do you just say no form of?
Well, everyone's different. So yes, I can give general advice a lot of the time, but sometimes it gets to the point where it becomes more individualized. So as an example, we all require different nutrients. So I don't recommend one diet to everybody, because you know, if you look at us two, we look different.
Yeah, we do.
Right? We look different. We've got different genetic backgrounds, right? So why would we need the same nutrients if our ancestors ate completely different things? Right? So I just wanted to caveat my answer before I said that, and just to really suggest that when it starts to get down to the nitty-gritty of nutrition, it needs to be done on the individual level. And again, I teach people how to do that in my book and on my program. But what I would say is, because this is a bit of a nuanced question, from an acne point of view, most people, and again, I'm not saying everybody, most people will benefit from avoiding dairy at least for a period of time. Okay. Now, I eat butter, and I can eat butter no problem. If I had milk, even the best quality 100% grass-fed cow milk, yogurt, cream, anything like that, I could almost guarantee my skin would break out if I had enough of it. So I'm someone that probably I just can't go there. I mean, I might do occasionally, but I'll just say to myself, yeah, you have that, but you know, next day or two, just be aware that you might have something appear on your face. Even now, I'm 55. That can still happen now. It's not because I'm not a teenager anymore, right? So getting back to your question, for someone that has acne, switching something for dairy is probably a good idea. You said almond milk at the beginning, right? Okay. So this is why it's nuanced. So what you need to be careful with things like almonds, and particularly almond milk. Now, plants have a toxin called oxalates, right? Plants can't run away. So the only way they can protect themselves is by producing toxins so that animals don't eat too much of their plant and kill them completely. Almond is it comes from a nut. It's sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second. So almonds contain a high level of oxalates. Now, oxalates can cause all kinds of issues in the body. Okay, a lot of things like arthritis would be an example. And I'll quickly tell you a story. It's not technically directly related to oxalates, but it gets the story across. 4.5 years ago, I moved to where I'm living now, and I decided to switch up my breakfast a little bit. And I decided to have porridge oats and a protein shake for breakfast. Now, I used to eat for breakfast similar to what most people eat for lunch and dinner. Okay, so like, meat and vegetables, fish and vegetables, etc. So I switched, and I was a lot more hungry after breakfast. But I thought, you know what, I want to reduce the amount of animal foods I'm eating, so I'm gonna stick with it for a while. And I didn't put two and two together. After a little while, I started getting pain in my knee, and I play a lot of tennis, and it started to affect my tennis. And I could still train at the gym during the week, but the weekend I could play tennis, but not at 100%, and I'd be really sore for the next week, and then I'd play again. I'll cut a very long story short. After about 3 years, I decided to cut the porridge oats out of my diet. 3 weeks later, the knee pain had completely gone. Right? So I'm not suggesting that was oxalates. There are potentially other substances within the oats that could have done that. But it just shows how how individual we are and how we all respond differently. Because I'm not telling people not to eat oats, because most people eat oats with no problem at all. But for me, it caused a problem. So if I was coaching someone and that asked that question, okay, if I can't have dairy, what can I replace it with? Because that's the other important thing. If you're taking something out of your diet, make sure you're replacing it with something else. Okay.
Equivalent to what you're taking out.
Sorry, say that again.
Would it be equivalent to what we're taking out? Or just something else?
It doesn't have to be. Well, it has to be kind of similar in a way. It might, if you're taking out a protein or a fat or a carbohydrate, you want to replace it with something similar. But if someone said to me, right, if I need to cut out dairy, what can I replace it with? The first thing I would ask is, well, when do you have dairy? What do you have? Are you having a cereal? Is it in a coffee? What kind of dairy are you having before I can suggest ideas for replacing it? So just as an example, I tend to have coconut milk. Now, that's not high in oxalates, and it works for me. I know it works for me. But sometimes people have to do a bit of trial and error. And that's where, again, having someone to coach you through that process can be really useful. But certainly for someone with acne, I think you said oat milk as well. That would probably be better than almond milk for the reasons I said, and it would definitely be better than dairy if you've got acne. Now, for people that can tolerate dairy, I would say, yeah, if you can get a really good quality, 100% grass-fed cow's milk or even goat's milk or whatever it might be, go for it. I'm not saying people shouldn't have dairy, because some people can, and there's a lot of nutrients in it. But for most people with acne, you probably want to avoid dairy.
So and I want you to tell us where we can find you on the web. I'm gonna post the link so everybody, you'll be able to find the links in the description. But I want you to tell us where we can find you, because I think this is really good. I have some people in mind, some men in mind, that I really am excited about them listening to today's episode, because they deal with some of these issues that you have, you're helping us with, especially with the inflammation. I have someone that's in my congregation, and they're always dealing with arthritis. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, I think it's something. I said, I think you might need to change your diet. It just came to me. I think you need to change your diet. And if you change your diet, you'll start feeling better. So listening to you, I'm like, that's just confirmation that we really are what we eat. And we really need to start paying more attention to our bodies in order that we can live longer, right? And not just that, just so we don't have to worry about putting all our money into things that at the end of the day, it's not going to work. Or you're going to find yourself having to use it for the remaining of your life, because like you said, you're just treating the symptom and you're not treating the root of the thing. So, so tell us how we can find you, and give us an example quickly, if you can, of if we came into your office today, or if we contacted you, how would you walk us through a session with you?
Okay, I'll answer that question first, and I'll tell you how you can get hold of me, everyone's different.
Mhm.
So to give you, say, right, this is definitely what we would do. But let me maybe explain how I start with in my book, and when I have people in my coaching program. The first place to start is actually on your mindset,
Mm.
because no program is going to work, even if it's the best program in the world, if you don't do it. So where I tend to start with most people is to get really clear on why you want clear skin, right? Because people think, well, I'm going to go and see Leigh because I want clear skin, but people don't often understand the why behind that.
That's good.
And the other thing that's really important for me when working with people is getting them to think in a positive frame of mind, because we are programmed as human beings from a survival mechanism to be pessimistic, to be negative, because as our ancestors, if they were walking across the plains of Africa and they look down and they think, oh, that's a stick, but actually it was a brown snake, right? If you're not pessimistic, is that a stick and is that a brown snake? And by the way, I've been in that position in Australia, and I chose the right decision.
Good.
Then if you think, oh, that's a stick, I'll pick that stick up, you're dead in 30 seconds. Right? So from a survival point of view, we think negatively, but that doesn't serve us when we're trying to heal from acne. So I use psychological techniques to get people more positive in the way they think. But another key thing I get people to do is to understand where their potential obstacles are going to be for following the program. And listen, over the last 28 years, I've heard all the excuses. So I've heard them before. So even in my book, there's actually there's an exercise to go through. Say, right, what are going to be your key factors that are going to get in the way of you completing the program? Because if you don't complete the program, you're not going to be successful. You're still going to have acne, and you're still going to have all the underlying causes that can cause more serious diseases, right? So it's really important that people get in the right mindset before they tackle, because it is quite a challenging change to make, right? Changing your behaviors for most people is quite difficult. So people have to understand that they're going to have to get out their comfort zone to be successful. So I prepare people for that before we actually get into looking at the nutrition and balancing the hormones and all those other things.
That's good, because that's good. As you're talking, I'm thinking about, because when I used to have a personal trainer, and it would be some days I would walk out of there and I felt like I was going to die, and I would look back at him and say, I'm not coming back in here. There's no way I'm coming back in here. And he's like, if you want this to last, you're gonna have to stop thinking and saying those words out of your mouth, or how hard it was and things of that nature. So, oh gosh. So yeah, as a counselor, when you say that changing your thinking, I say changing somebody's thinking, their behavior, it is one of the most difficult things for people to unlearn those negative patterns in their life.
Yeah, but worth it.
It's very worth it. Yeah.
For me, I every day I wake up and I'm grateful that I'm not waking up feeling anxious that I don't know what my face is going to look like today. I don't have that anxiety anymore. I used to have that anxiety every night when I went to bed. Oh, what's my face going to look like tomorrow? Am I going to want to face the world tomorrow? I haven't thought that for, was it been 24 years now, 25 years? And I'm grateful every day that I no longer have that I can just go to bed worry-free, that I'm going to wake up the next day and my skin's going to be good.
It's good. It's good.
So it's worth getting out of your comfort zone. It's worth the change.
It is. And it makes your life just a whole lot better. I always tell people that you create the world that you live in by your thoughts and your words. And so if you speak negative, you're just going to receive negative. If you say you look or you feel, or that's just what you're going to receive, because that's all you're going to see, because you've already set yourself up to see that or to experience that.
Yeah, completely agree.
And I want you to tell us how we can find you, and then tell us how we can get your book, because I know I'm going to get my copy when we're finished talking. So if you can tell us how we can find you and how we can get your book.
Sure. So my website is eliminateadultacne.com. You can find all my social media on there, but I'll tell you what they are anyway. So Instagram and Twitter, or X, I'm Adult Acne Pod. On Facebook, it is Eliminate Adult Acne. And I'm also on YouTube. That's Adult Acne Podcast.
Okay. So you have a podcast as well?
Yes, I've got a podcast. It's only just come out. So episode 2 comes out tomorrow.
Okay.
And in terms of the book, so you can get, you can get that via the website, but Amazon and Barnes and Noble, all the big stores, if they don't stock it in the physical store, you can order it through them. But yeah, Amazon is where most people get them. You get it on paperback and Kindle versions as well.
Oh, good. Yes, I really thank you. I've learned so much. I've already been thinking about, I have a friend who's a very healthy eater, and so she's been on me. And so I have been thinking, I have telling my children that I said, we really need to come off of eating so much meat. And I want to start growing our own vegetables and things of that nature. So this is just really solidifying the decision and the road that I'm heading on. So I really do appreciate you. I thank you for all your work that you have done. And I know that the listeners are really, really, really excited to hear this as well, because I know it's not just the acne that many of us need to consider why we need to switch up our eating. It's the fact that we are eating the wrong things, and it's affecting us internally, and so yes, I'm excited. And again, I thank you for joining us on this day. And so everybody, please remember that you can go to the description. I know some of you are listening to us as you're driving to work, or as you are working out, or as you're home cleaning up. Take the time. If you did not get the time to write down the links, go to the description, and everything that you need will be on there. And so again, we thank you for joining us. I wanted to see if is there anything else you wanted us to know before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. So I have a confession to make.
Okay.
So in my book, I talk about all the side effects that the common medications cause. Now, my approach also creates side effects. Would you like to know what they are?
What are they?
Decreased body fat, increased energy, sleep better, can do more things, more confident, more self-esteem, and ultimately happier. How's about that?
That is, look, we want those side effects. I know I do. When you said decreased body fat, I said, Lord have mercy, let me hurry up and get my book, because that is my goal. I picked up some weight over the past year, so I need to get that off. So we're excited. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Leigh, thank you for coming. And so make sure that you take the time to share, let us know. And I always like to give the listeners an opportunity to email questions if they have any questions. And so you guys know how to reach me, briannahedden@icloud.com. If you have any questions, please email those in to me, and I will do my best to forward them to Leigh if he doesn't mind. And he can answer those.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Haven Podcast with your host, Brianna. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe and share so that you never miss an episode.
Let us know where you're tuning in from. And as always, I love you. And until next time, remember, I'm always praying for you.